VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. This is the February 18th edition. We are only 3 weeks away from free agency. It's really hard to believe it's going to slap us right before we know it. Hopefully, the Vikings, with about $25 million, are players in that arena. But we are here with a very familiar guest. We're here with Dustin Klug, who will be starting his own podcast. He's been on this show about 5 or 6 times. How the hell are you, man?
We're doing good. We're doing good. I'm happy to be back on the show. It's definitely been a minute, and yeah, I love being on here. So get excited to talk some
What have you been
Vikings
up
today.
to?
So I just recently started a new podcast called 612 Vikings. You guys can check that out if you would like. I'll be kind of soft launching that here starting Monday. Getting that first episode out, and then it'll be available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And super excited. There's a Twitter account at 612 Vikings. A lot of cool stuff I will be having on there this upcoming year. So super excited. Make sure you guys go follow, and we'll go from there.
And it's going to be analysis, opinion, and guests from time to time. Is that kind of how it's going to shake down?
We'll be having guests. Kind of doing some surprise guests too, hopefully, and then just analysis topics, live streams on Fridays I'm planning to do. So some super cool stuff over there.
All right, sweet. Well, we are anxious to see that. You keep us posted with details in the future, and we'll get it out in the stratosphere on our end. For today's purposes, we're going to chat about concerns about the Vikings offseason. We got producer Ireland over here. Myself, I'm going to kind of be the moderator and get follow-up from both of your guys' concerns. But as the guest of the hour, Dustin, I'm going to ask you, let's rank these. Let's count down to number one. We'll get to number one. That would be your most grave concern. So number 3, entering the Vikings offseason, what's something that gives you a little anxiety?
I know it might not seem like a huge deal right now, or I guess, at the time, but the TJ Hawkinson injury kind of scares me a little bit. Dealing with the knee injuries it's not super fun to deal with. And there's reports speculating that he might not be ready till October, mid-October. He's going to miss at least that first month. Hopefully he gets a speedy recovery, but being a part of that vital offense and something that Kevin O'Connell, that's his bread and butter. Mm-hmm. We have Jefferson, we have Addison, but Hawkinson really was that, third option. KJ Osborne wasn't really in there too much with his inconsistencies. That run game really wasn't too much. If of anything. So TJ Hawkinson, being part of that vital offense, I'm kind of curious on how that offense will roll this year with the first month missing him. So we'll see how that goes. Got Josh Oliver, Johnny Munt. Hopefully they re-sign him, but we'll see how that goes.
Tyler and I chatted about this today off air because I'm just of the assumption that they're going to do something. Like they recognize that Hawkinson probably won't be ready. And whether that's emphasize Josh Oliver and Nick Muse and Johnny Munt more or sign somebody. So I'm not really concerned about it, but I completely understand your guys' reservation. Tyler, that's where you're at. You're a little paranoid that they're going to gloss over it. Is that true?
A little bit, just because, if Hawkinson's coming back, you don't want to commit a ton of money to the tight end position. I really liked your suggestion on Twitter. I'm not sure, was it you or was it Yannick who suggested this? Like, hey, we could bring back Irv Smith.
That was me. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was you. I saw that on my feed. I'm like, ooh, that's a spicy take right there.
He'd only be about $1 million or so because he had a real slow season at the Bengals, like 185 yards.
I mean, how confident are we in Munt? Like, best third tight end in the league? Can he fill in for a few games?
Yeah, I think it's the only reason that I would, I guess, not absolutely prioritize tight end is because they spent so much on Oliver. And you would think if you're going to spend that much money on a backup, this is why you got him in the first place. But we shall see. You also had a good point off air, Tyler, about if they knock it out of the park with the WR3, then those targets for however many games can translate to whoever that guy is, whether that's a veteran or a free agent. Tyler, your third most concern heading into this offseason.
My third most. So we're starting from the bottom and getting more and more concerning as the episode
Correct.
goes on, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start with My third most concern is punter. So Ryan Wright actually had the fewest punts out of any punter who started all 17 games downed inside the 25.
Yuck.
So when you talk about, flipping field position, the Vikings were horrible at it. Either we'd make it to like midfield and then we'd punt it and then it'd be a touchback, just put too much leg on it, or he just like the opposite would happen where we don't do much on offense, and then when he does punt it and when you do need that leg, it's just not quite there. So, I mean, I know Ryan Wright's pretty young, and I know he had like a really good rookie season, but at the same time, it's like, okay, I mean, punter's probably got to be the most underrated position in football in terms of how it impacts winning. Because if you're able to flip field position and really prevent the opposing team's offense from doing much, that's going to help you a ton. And I feel like field position plays a key part in that. Like just, oh crap, the Packers are, inside their own 10, and you can kind of tee off on them, try and get a safety, or at least, make them work 90 yards to the opposite side. So it's, a pretty big thing. I'm curious to see whether or not they sign someone in free agency or what they do at that position. And my personal fear is that Kwesi's going to say, oh, he's still young, so we'll run it back with Ryan Wright, continuity or whatever. And he could just have a really bad 2024 season. And we're all sitting there like, well, why didn't we replace him?
Yeah, that would be the Greg Joseph solution, where they just bank on, well, he's going to get better. We love him. He's going to get better. And that, I mean, Joseph didn't profusely struggle this year, but he was like a bottom 5 kicker per field goal percentage. That's what actually I expect them to do because of your anxiety about it. He's young. He had a down year. He'll get better. But we shall see, because you're absolutely correct that punting and vis-a-vis field position is completely underrated, just like time of possession in Vikings football and all of football. Most casual fans don't even care, but it's huge. All right, so we have some punting anxiety. We have natural anxiety about when the hell will TJ Hawkinson come back. Sometimes I pull up NFL articles and they're like, yeah, if Hawkinson comes back at all in 2024. And I'm like, ay, caramba, don't be saying that. All right, what is your next concern, Dustin?
My next one is not necessarily like a team like member, a player, but I got the competitiveness of the Minnesota Vikings this next year. There's a lot of different alleyways that the Vikings can go. Kwesi can cut a lot of guys, he can re-sign a lot of guys. Either way, half of our team is practically free agents, so just kind of seeing how Kwesi's going to deal with all the money that we have available, and the lack of players that we have in depth and all that. So with the Lions on the come up, the Packers are looking good. The Bears have a lot of cap space. They're looking like they're on the come up as well. So the division's going to be pretty tough. And if the Vikings say that they're in a competitive rebuild, that you got to stay true to the first part of that and be competitive and not just have a flop over team. And that just kind of worries me, because if you don't want to tank, you're trying to play for playoff positioning and possibly for the Super Bowl, like every team wants to do, whatever. But yeah, that's the competitiveness in the Vikings. The strong division. So, and NFC in general is pretty strong too.
Yeah, it felt like on one certain weekend or one day, we all realized the NFC North is no joke anymore. I think that was like the division or the wild card round of the postseason that Saturday or Sunday, because we knew the Bears had the first pick. Jordan Love suddenly was this damn Pro Bowler, and the Lions were embarking on their path to NFC title game. I will tell both of you right here, right now, aside from the obvious drafting the wrong quarterback, they just get a ponder do-over. The worst case scenario for the Vikings in 2024 is running it back completely with Kirk Cousins, not drafting a quarterback with high round draft capital, and then finishing 9-8 or so, and not missing or not getting in the postseason. That would be the worst case scenario, because you wouldn't have an heir apparent like JJ McCarthy. You'd have a shitty draft pick, probably around 16, and then we'd be doing this. Oh, what are we going to do with Cousins all over again? That's what leads me to believe over and over that a quarterback, even if Cousins is resigned for 2 or 3 years, I think they absolutely have to spend high round draft capital on a quarterback. And it's got to be in the first couple rounds. It can't just be, hey, we're getting Jordan Travis in round 4, baby. I really don't think that will happen in the sense that they're just going to gloss over it, because what is the point of a rebuild, a competitive rebuild, if you're just going to have a 36-year-old quarterback, 37 in 2025? So the evidence to me suggests that beyond the shadow of a doubt, we can talk ourselves into edge rusher, we can talk ourselves into a trade down, but at the end of draft day number 2, I swear there has to be a quarterback that they have circled that says, no matter what, even if Cousins is on the roster, like, all right, so it's Michael Pratt, that's the guy we love, something like that. So I agree with you that they even said at the year-end press conference that the goal is to shed rebuild from the competitive rebuild with a bold and efficient offseason. And again, it has to involve an heir apparent quarterback, because otherwise, what in the hell did you really rebuild? That's my soapbox. So a very good point, Dustin. Tyler, either additional comments on that or your next concern, or both?
I have an additional comment, which is I dang near had a panic attack because I got a notification on my laptop saying 2% battery left, and I realized it was not charged because my main computer is still down. So I'm using my laptop here, my Chromebook,
fair
actually.
enough.
So it explains the lag on my end, but I was like, oh crap, I'm about to disconnect, aren't I? So yeah, no additional comments as far as your guys' previous takes there. I kind of left the room for a second to get the charger.
All good. You got your next concern?
Oh yeah, my next concern, aside from the charger, is kicker. It's kicker. So
Yeah.
I'm going to double down on special team here. Greg Joseph is a free agent. Now, I have really mixed feelings about him because on one hand, he's surprisingly clutch. Like Leighton and I and Savion talked about this on one of the X's and Skulls episodes, but Greg Joseph does not get enough credit for how clutch he has been in late game situations. Like we always get anxiety over Vikings kickers, Blair Walsh, Gary Anderson. And we will forever, exactly. But like the past couple of years, Greg has been like Kai Forbath levels of clutch. And, I'm just saying that because I love Kai Forbath, and I thought we should have kept him after, 2017. But yeah, on the other hand, though, despite his clutchness, he will miss the most routine kicks, like extra points, and it'll drive me crazy. He's one of those weird, bizarro kickers where typically you'll see a guy miss from, 50 yards plus, and they'll make all the short kicks, so it's kind of predictable. Oh, hey, you're going to miss a long kick. We'll just, go for it on 4th down from 50 plus. It's the other way around with Greg. He will miss the short kicks, but then he'll nail a 60-yarder, and you're sitting there like, what the? Oh my gosh! Like that first Giants game in 2023, I believe it was. So I'm not sure what the Vikings do there. Do you re-sign Greg Joseph? Is he shown enough to where you feel comfortable re-signing him, giving him a slight pay raise, or do you draft someone? And my fear with that is, well, Vikings young kickers never do well. Like whenever we draft someone, it just, we don't develop them. And a lot of that was like Mike Zimmer and cranky old coach just giving the kicker heebie-jeebies, or it's just the kicker having heebie-jeebies, or it's trading for Vedvik and giving up a 4th round pick. Did we give up a 4th for Vedvik?
5th. It was the 5th.
The Ravens sold a snake oil where it was like, hey, this guy's the next Justin Tucker. He looks really good, guys. And then
he can kick and punt.
Kick and punt. There you go.
Yeah, we thought we were going to save a roster spot for some sweet ass wide receiver or something. And then, I remember getting the notification on that trade.
I wanted tight end Zach Davidson to be our punter / depth tight end, save a roster spot. But yeah, what are we going to do with kicker this offseason is a really big thing, because if we get rid of Kirk, and I hate to make everything about Kirk when it isn't, but you're going to have to develop a young quarterback anyways. So why not just develop a young kicker at that point and just accept the fact that you're going to have a young team and young players are going to make rookie mistakes? So do those two things go hand in hand where it's like, do we keep the veterans at kicker and quarterback, or do we draft rookies at both positions? Or, knowing kicker nowadays, you can probably sign one in undrafted free agency, but kicker is what I am second most concerned about, Dustin.
Yep.
Tyler, I hope that your next point is in long snapper. We need our all pro long snapper.
I promise there is no Andrew DePaulo shade coming here, and I always botch his name because he's got the A and the O in that order. But no,
I always have to think about it.
Pro Bowl long snapper. I saw him on the video board. It was awesome. Shout out to Andrew.
Awesome.
On Joseph, I was willing to do the olive branch for last year because I bought into the thinking like, all right, yep, no, he can get better. And then once again, it was like the exact same ranking league-wide, 27th in field goal percentage for ordinary field goals. And now I'm convinced that even though we are cynical and we will, even if the Vikings traded for Justin Tucker tomorrow, we're never going to trust that the kick's going to be good in the fourth quarter because we're just hardwired to think the worst. So I fully endorse going to draft Will Reichard, I think it's from Alabama, somebody to start. The goal would be to find a guy who can do both, to be like, top 12 in regular field goal percentage, and then, hit 7 out of 8 of game-winning field goals. I think there's a path to do both, and I think somebody there has to realize it. All right, Dustin, I'm saving my big one to make sure I don't steal your thunder. So let's have your most grave concern heading into free agency, which is 3 weeks away.
Honestly, I was thinking about adding like an honorable mention here, but I think it's QB1. We got to know who QB1 is. And, we tried to see what life is like without Kirk Cousins, the second half of the season. Didn't necessarily work out. A lot of people want to go with bridge quarterback, Nick Mullins, Josh Dobbs, he had a fun 2 games and then that was it. But other than that, you have Jaron Hall, who was unplayable. Granted, he was a rookie. He wasn't supposed to play. But, I was debating on putting QB1 over, someone like Danielle Hunter, but Danielle Hunter isn't as big of an impact, or I guess that position isn't as big of an impact as quarterback is to winning games. So that's why I put QB1 over, a guy like Danielle Hunter, edge rusher, which we can find in the draft. If whoever we re-sign, I think we should draft the opposite, or, there's a lot of different avenues you can go. You can still re-sign Kirk and draft a high-end quarterback in the draft. But QB1, that's going to win you games or lose you games depending on what you do at that position this offseason. And me personally, I think that we should re-sign Kirk. I know there's rumors to like a 3-year deal. I'm not aboard that, but at least one to 2 years, making that second year void year or something like that. But QB1 is probably the most important position and the most concerning going into this offseason.
Yeah, it assuredly is. There's just no other way around it because you have to trust this regime to get it right, whether that's doing both, re-signing Cousins, drafting a guy, or solely drafting a guy. Everything about Vikings football boils down to this choice. So I'm glad you brought that up as the main concern. On Josh Dobbs, I want to point out, I think I did this once before, the game against the Saints where he called his shot and pointed to where he was going to run. That was like the last time anything good happened in Vikings football that, later resulted in a win. If that can be believed, it's so weird. I mean, I guess you could call Nick Mullins' game-winning drive against the Raiders the last good thing, but that just felt like a salvation. Like, oh my God, this guy saved the season. But yeah, when things were going great, the last good thing that happened was that Dobbs rushing touchdown. My grave concern, probably a little underrated, is my concern would be the Vikings run it back at running back because they have 5 guys under contract. And then again, nothing changes. I will tell you right here and now, if they don't fix the run game, it's ranked 27th for DVOA in back-to-back years. Kevin O'Connell is not going to be the head coach for very long. I know we're in a pass-happy league, but you have to be able to run the ball. If you're not going to pay, and I don't recommend they pay $10 million to somebody, but you still have to be average at running the football or better than average. And I believe O'Connell can figure this out. But if they don't, if they go 27th again next year, just by the way that the football works, you can't get away with that and be a contender. And that doesn't mean you have to go Zimmer on the bit and we're a run-happy franchise. You just have to be able to run the ball and close out games. That's why we have so many goddamn close games, is because when we get up, we can't finish it out. We can't run the ball like a normal team would. So if they must run it back with Ty Chandler as RB1, great, but you better fix the scheme because you can't just be some shitty run team again and think that things are going to be better. Yeah. Say what?
To add to that too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say Dwayne McBride. He's gonna save us all. He's gonna come in, replace Madison, be that.
He looked like a fullback in the preseason. What were you saying, Dustin?
No, to add to that, we didn't even get our first rushing touchdown until what was it, week 9 against the Packers? Cam Akers.
That's absurd.
That has to be, wasn't that like a record too or something?
Yeah, it was flirting with a record. I don't think we ended up being the biggest joke ever, but yeah, it was such a change of pace of what we're used to. We're used to like dynastic running games with Adrian and then Dalvin, Diet Adrian kind of. And so we had our first brush with futility in these last 2 years, and we're like, oh my God, we got to go sign Saquon or do something, to swing the pendulum back. All right, Tyler, you're going to get the last word, either an underrated or most grave concern.
I actually want to get back to something that was mentioned, which was Josh Dobbs pointing at the opposing team rushing in for a touchdown. How opposed are we to having Josh Dobbs be the bridge quarterback as
not at all,
rather than like signing Wilson or someone along those lines? Like,
not at all, because the bridge quarterback is there to bridge. He's not supposed to morph into the savior. That's why, was it about 2 or 3 weeks ago, somebody came up with the grand idea of Baker Mayfield. And I'm like, for real? That guy's going to get 35 million. If you're going to do that, just re-sign Kirk. Like, yeah. I mean, for the love of God. But Dobbs, I think when we read the shit about Russell Wilson, like all of these guys being bridge quarterbacks, they are not the solution. They're there to chill for about a month until McCarthy or Drake May or whoever they draft is ready. So with Dobbs, I'd be on board with that. I wouldn't expect that he suddenly morphs into a savant who can throw outside the numbers. That was his biggest problem. But if you're already going into a season where it's the JJ McCarthy season or it's the Drake May season, you probably have a ceiling of about 9-8 and hopefully a wild card playoff berth. So yeah, I think we have our bridge quarterback at home in Nick Mullins, because if the Flores defense didn't die, I'm convinced that we would love Nick Mullins right now. But in the most mind-boggling turn of events, the defense absolutely died the day that Nick Mullins got his start. I'm not exaggerating. Against the Bengals in that fourth quarter, everything went to shit. It was like the best defense in the NFL in the middle of the season, and then it dragged itself back down to the very bottom for no good reason. So I would, if they're going to do the bridge thing, I don't want them to do that at all. I want them, if it's Drake May, just start in week 1. I already know we're going to finish 6-11, 7-10, start getting him his reps. But if they're going to do a bridge, I kind of grew to really like Nick Mullins. I loved it being 2nd and 24, and we're like, no, it's all good. We're going to get it because this guy just flings the bastard. So,
yeah, and the reason why I brought up Josh Dobbs is because of his mobility, which leads me to my number one concern, and that's the offensive line depth. A lot of our backups are free agents this offseason.
Yes.
So Schlotman, Quessenberry, Udo, Reed, Randall is a restricted free agent. Reisner, who's our starting left guard, is a free agent. So, we're starting to come around the corner where it's like, oh, is interior offensive line really a problem anymore? Well, it might be if we let half of our backups leave in free agency and suddenly we're trying to figure out who our swing guys are again. Like that would scare me. Like, I can't imagine all of them leaving, and a lot of them are going to be cheap, but like honestly, it wouldn't hurt me if Chris Reed left because he didn't do much. But like, I don't want to see Reisner leave. I don't want to see Quessenberry leave. I mean, because when Quessenberry played, it was like, holy crap! Like at left tackle, he was really solid in pass pro. And then Randall, they just kind of use everywhere at this point. He can play left tackle, right tackle, guard. Like, I feel like they'd bring him back, but you have a lot of guys who are free agents, on the offensive line, minus, a couple of starters. So you just kind of have to figure out, okay, are we bringing all of these guys back? Who's the most expendable? How are we going to fill that hole as, that backup guard or whatever, if we need to? So yeah, that's my kind of underrated concern, because there's no guarantee that it's necessarily going to be addressed in the offseason. Like we talk about Kirk a lot. We talk about, running back and all these things where, after the season we had, that something's going to happen there. We don't really have certainty with like backup offensive linemen. And that's why it's concerning to me, because all it takes is a couple of guys to leave or someone to get hurt, and suddenly your offensive line sucks again, and now you have a rookie in there, and it's like, oh crap. So
there are two things that give me solace on that one, although fundamentally I agree. The depth guys that are indeed free agents down the line, like 5 of them, they're all going to be affordable. So I'm going to guess, because this locker room culture is outstanding and #1 place to play in the NFL in terms of NFL PA rankings, I'm going to guess most of them will come back. And if they don't, and they have to get, other veterans, this regime has proven to me that they're good at offensive line solutions, whereas the last one we're like, oh God, now what? Like, remember with just a regular old guy on the offensive line would get hurt, we'd be like, oh my God, we shouldn't have had to feel that way for that many years. It should have been the way it is now, where it's like, hey, Quessenberry's coming in, it's going to be okay. That's the way it should have been for the Zimmer years, but it's kind of like the give and take. With the Zimmer years, we never had to worry about the running game. But now with O'Connell, we're like, is he going to figure this shit out? So I agree that offensive line depth is a priority, and I think they'll address it because most of these guys should be somewhat affordable. All right, we got all of the concerns out in the open.
Shout out to Rashad Hill, too.
Yeah, I hear you. One more time, is it Dustin 612 Vikings? And what's the Twitter handle of that show?
Yep. So for the new podcast, it's at 612 Vikings, all one word.
Okay. And they can find that on Twitter. And then when it gets up and running here this month and in March, it'll be on all the major platforms. You're going to do analysis, opinion, hopefully some guest spots. So sweet. All right, everybody will check that out. Sir, your job is to let us know before free agency, or certainly before the draft, when you're available to come back on, and we can start to hash more of this stuff out.
For sure.
All right, gentlemen. You guys have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Skol, baby.